Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Wake Up with YPN. We've got a great guest this morning, and we look forward to diving right into that. I'm Kayla Fisher, your chair of the Iowa City YPN, and today we are talking about some recent zoning code changes in Iowa City, and we are excited to have Anne Russett, who is the senior planner for the city of Iowa City, with us here today as our guest to share a little bit more about that. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Kayla. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for popping on this morning and helping to share a little bit about what's going on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do with the city of Iowa City, and your background?
Sure. So as you said, I'm the senior planner with the city of Iowa City. We are housed in the Neighborhood and Development Services Department. The planning team, we have 5 of us on the planning team. We do all of the long-range planning. So thinking about the comprehensive planning and what the vision is for how Iowa City grows. We do all of that, but we also do zoning code changes to our zoning code, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. And we do case planning. So if anyone ever needs a site plan or building a new building or multifamily building or commercial building in Iowa City, we review those plans.
Well, it sounds like you handle a lot of things with your team there, and we are excited. Thank you for all that you do. I've heard that there's some recent code changes in relating to housing. Can you tell us a little bit about what those zone code changes are and how they were adopted?
Sure. We had been working on several changes to our zoning code over the past year, and they were really aimed at increasing housing choices, increasing housing supply, and also encouraging housing affordability in Iowa City. So I'm just going to give a high-level overview of some of these changes, kind of breaking it down by housing type. So we made some changes to single-family and duplex housing standards in our zoning code. We added some more flexibility to reduce the lot size, minimum lot frontage, minimum lot width for single family and duplex uses, which would allow developers to have smaller lots. Another thing is that we allow duplex and attached single-family dwellings outside of the core of the community to have up to 5 bedrooms. Prior to this code change, they were restricted to 4 bedrooms. And we heard that that was a challenge for some of our community members who have larger families but need to rent and can't afford a detached single-family home. In terms of multifamily standards, we simplified the process for building multifamily in our commercial zones. Prior to this code change, you typically needed to go to the Board of Adjustment to get a special exception to do multifamily in our commercial zones. And now the process is a little bit more streamlined and a little bit more flexible. We also added some flexibility to some of our design standards. We heard that there were a couple of different design standards that weren't needed and were a little cumbersome. So we removed those standards. The other thing related to bedrooms for multifamily uses, again, outside of the core, is that you can have a multifamily unit up to 4 bedrooms. And prior to that, it was limited to 3. If you're familiar with accessory dwelling units or granny flats, carriage houses, that type of thing, the city has allowed those uses for several years. But we haven't seen a lot of accessory dwelling units get built over the years. So we added some flexibility to these standards with these code changes. You can do them in more zones with different housing types. So you can have an accessory dwelling unit with a duplex. So it's not just allowed with a detached single family home. We no longer require a parking space for that accessory dwelling unit. We're allowing them to be a little bit larger than they were previously, but they're still capped. The size would still be capped. And the one thing that hasn't changed about accessory dwelling units is that the owner of the property does still need to live on site, whether that's in the primary home or in the accessory dwelling unit. We also made some changes specifically for income restricted affordable housing. So if this was really targeted at affordable housing developers, maybe for a low-income housing tax credit project or something like that, where you are providing units for a specific population, you can get an increase in density, you can get an increase in height, some flexibility to standards like setbacks. And also parking is no longer required for those income restricted units. So that's kind of the high level overview of the changes, Kayla.
Those seem like some really in-depth changes, and that you guys have really put a lot of thought and consideration into what you've put together. Before we go any further, if anyone has any questions about what Anne has already shared with us, please put some comments in the live video section, and we'll get to those at the end. And if the live is over, we'll be sure to answer them too. And when were those code changes adopted?
They were adopted by City Council last November.
Great. And how does someone go about suggesting revisions, and what brought on some of these changes? And, how long have you been working on some of those things?
Yeah, the reason that we moved these changes forward is that there were several plans, our Affordable Housing Action Plan, our Fair Housing Choice Study, and even the City Council Strategic Plan all included action items to make changes to our zoning code, specifically related to housing supply, housing choice, and affordability. So these actions and these changes were really implementing the items that were in those adopted plans.
Great. And I know that you mentioned that you're just kind of briefly touching on some of the things that have been going on and changing. How can people learn more about these things? I think these are really important changes, and also important things to kind of just be aware of, to know that there's people like you out there working for us and property owners here in the Iowa City area. How can people learn more about these changes if they were interested in that?
Sure. A couple things. First, there is a lunch and learn this Thursday, February 1st. That's going to be hosted by Greater Iowa City. It's at 11:30 at Merge. There's some information on the city's website. There was a press release. There's a link to, I think, register for that event if you're interested. And at that event, I'll be going over the code changes in a lot more detail. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we've been working on some flyers that we hope to have on our website soon. So our website is icgov.org/urban planning. Okay. So if you just go to the urban planning website of the City of Iowa City, we'll eventually have some flyers, hopefully this week or next, that give a higher level overview of the changes. Also, the ordinances are on our website there as well. And you can always reach out to me if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, that was my next question. If someone is working with a property or a buyer or a seller and they have questions, how might they reach out to you? Is your contact information on the City of Iowa City website?
I think so. Okay. I hope it's there.
I hope it is. We'll go with that. I'm sure that it is. At least someone on your team. And I think that we've covered a lot of great info this morning, and kind of just touching on some quick facts about recent changes in the area. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers this morning? I don't think we have any questions yet, which means you've done a great job of explaining the hows and the whats.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add, since I have your guys' attention, is we have received several questions about accessory dwelling units. We get calls from realtors all the time. So please feel free to reach out to us about any questions, if it's related to this ordinance or just any question about a specific property. I think one thing that I always want to plug when we meet with realtors is that the city does have local historic districts and local conservation districts that are subject to additional rules. So if you're ever selling, working on a sale in one of those districts, and if you have any questions, let us know. But those properties do require additional review, especially for exterior changes. So we're happy to help with that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be a great, actually, new topic on one of our episodes to cover. So we would love to have you or one of your team members back to that to kind of talk about what those restrictions are, because you're definitely right. We have a couple of those areas here in town, and some that you wouldn't necessarily know about unless you asked. And some property owners may not be aware if they haven't undergone any recent changes. So thank you for plugging that. I think that's a great additional kind of nugget, and maybe we'll be able to expand on that in the future too. We don't have any questions yet, so we're doing a great job. So I think we'll let everyone get on with their Monday morning. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to you and your team at City of Iowa City for thinking in forward way. And I also wanted to say that I have heard a lot about accessory dwelling units. So you are right. I think the topics and conversations are kind of stirring, and ideas are flowing on how to make those happen. So thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your week. And to everyone who is watching live, tune in 2 weeks from now.